Okay. So Kresse, hi. Lovely to have you with me today to talk all about the story of Elvis and Kresse. So you've been with the brand activators in the Bureau for just over a year now, I think, if memory serves me correctly. Mm-hmm. You have a fantastic story to tell, a really interesting tale about how you work in the circular economy, what you've done, what you've achieved, and we're going to hear a little bit about where you're taking the brand going forward, and also have a little chat about how speaking has been a part of the business and the benefits of introducing that into your business. So I'd like to just hand over to you, Kresse, to give us a little bit of an overview.
Sure. Well, I guess the best way to start is to really talk about how we began the business. And the answer to that question is very much by accident. When I first came to the UK, I started doing a very interesting exploration into the waste situation here. I've always been fascinated by waste. One of the most interesting statistics that I learned at the British Library was that in the year that I arrived, 100 million tons of waste went to British landfills. And I always found that to be both impossible to understand and also really devastating. So I went to see what that looked like on the ground. I went to lots of different landfill sites and started to get to grips with the fact that most of it is construction based or commercial and industrial. There's some huge patterns to it, which means that lots of that material should be relatively easy and straightforward to recover if we just apply our imagination and creativity to it. So I think that's what I set out to do when I brought home the fire hose. It wasn't that I thought immediately we should be the best people in the world to create a sustainable luxury brand, but I did think we might be the only people who were going to dedicate some real time to solving London's damaged, decommissioned fire hose problem.
That's brilliant. And just tell us how you came across the fire hose.
Well, I had a chance meeting with the London Fire Brigade, and I think my estimation about their environmental goals would be that they were trying to use less water or something like that. But actually, for them at the time, they were looking at a relatively leaky estate. So a lot of the fire stations are old and really hard to heat. But they were also trying to work out what they could do about their fire hose waste. And I went to see it in Croydon, which is where all hoses go to either be repaired or to be decommissioned, so to die, I guess. And I really fell in love with it. It's beautiful. It was piled up on this rooftop in the sun. It's rich, it's red, it's lustrous, and for me, I could just see its potential and knew that for it to be buried underground for all of time was just not worthy of the material, not worthy of its life-saving history.
Sure. And at the time, did you know what you were going to do with it, and had you worked with product like that before?
No, at the time, we had no idea what we were going to do with it, and I had never made any luxury goods and didn't know anything about the luxury industry. So there was no. The reason why we went into that space is purely because we always focus on the problem. So when we decided that we were going to solve the fire hose problem, we then became experts in fire hose. We did an enormous amount of research around what fire hose is, how much waste there is, where it occurs, why it occurs, what is the best next possible life for this material. And we discovered that a couple of the really high-end luxury brands have been using nitrile rubber since the 60s, and we thought, how crazy is it that they are generating new material that is actually of, a lesser quality than this material when fire hose is going to landfill. And that's really what pushed us into that space. It was a lot of research, a lot of trial and error, and a lot of really staying focused on the problem.
Yeah, sure. Did you guys need to seek investment to develop your ideas and concepts?
No, we didn't. I mean, I think it was 2005. I can't imagine there was no real impact investment at the time. I can't imagine even if there was any that we could have found, that any would have been given to people who were trying to turn fire hose into luxury goods.
Yeah, sure.
we were definitely ahead of our time. You know, if you think back to that time, there was a little bit of organic cotton on the market, but that was it.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
and everyone thinks that even now there's been an enormous revolution into ethical and sustainable fashion and luxury, and really there hasn't. The last 10 years has, particularly if you look at some of the research done and published by the Union of Concerned Researchers in Fashion, we know that this is an industry that's very good at celebrating mediocrity and very good at making a big deal out of something that really is very tokenistic. You know, this is still an industry which has not evolved, which has not had its revolution, and which really, really needs to, because because it's not good enough.
Yeah, sure, sure. And we hear so much, don't we, about from a fashion perspective, about how much stuff gets sent over to landfill.
Yeah.
In terms of tons and billions of tons per year.
Yeah.
Tell us about the products that you created from the London Fire Brigade hoses. Then let's go into detail about those.
So the first items that we created were belts, and you know, there's a good reason for that. Fire hose is long and straight, and belts are long and straight, and we were financing this ourselves and had no money. We were living in a house share in Brixton, making belts in the bedroom, and it was very much a case of cleaning hose in the bathtub, cutting it with kitchen scissors, and riveting on buckles. And that level of industry is something that you can do with a very small amount of money in a very small amount of space. We started to Elvis started to learn to sew later on, after the belts were successful enough to afford us a sewing machine. And then we rented our first small workspace, which was a garage, then a slightly bigger garage, then a third larger garage, then our first workshop. You know, we just grew over the years to expand the collection, expand the waste materials that we collect. We now collect 15 different waste materials on a regular basis.
Wow.
And transform all of them, and also led us to transform our relationships with our stakeholder partners, like the Firefighters Charity and Barefoot College, because 50% of our profits from each collection go to a charity associated with the waste.
Yeah, that's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And talk about some of the products now, Kresse, that you're creating. So from the belt, tell me the range that you have.
So I think when we talk about what we're creating, it goes far beyond the products. So we are a luxury business. We make belts, bags, and wallets. But the thing that we're most proud of having created is a sustainable, ethical, regenerative business model. You know, we're a certified social enterprise. We're one of the founding B Corps in the UK. We give more than we take from the environment and from its people. And this is the kind of structure that a business has to have if it's going to exist in the future, if we are, as a human civilization, to have a future. So I think the thing that we're most proud of having created is a business that is actually creative and doesn't destroy things, and certainly doesn't destroy everything in its path.
Perfect. And you've certainly carved out a niche for yourselves with that. And the business has grown as you guys have grown with your product range. And you now work from a mill, don't you?
Yes, we came to North Kent in 2013. We found an old mill that was, I guess the best way to describe it was no heat, no power, no planning permission, and 22 rotten windows. So it
all
needed,
to play for.
Yeah, it needed exactly us to buy it, because it needed people who were inventive and creative and could apply some ingenuity to bringing it back to life. And it is where we are based and where the business is based, and it's been a really wonderful place for us to be. It's a lot more inspiring than a garage or industrial estate, I can tell you that much for sure.
Brilliant, yeah, brilliant. So tell me a little bit about, is it the Burberry Foundation, if I've got that right, that you've been doing some work with?
Yeah, so we started looking at leather waste in probably 2010, which was about the time that we had solved the London fire hose problem. So we reached a size then where we could take all the hose every year and fix it. It doesn't mean we can stop. We have to keep solving it year after year because there's always more of it to come. But it gave us the time to look outside and think about what other materials we could apply our way of working to. And when we started looking at leather, we realized it was actually a huge international issue, and that no one had really come up with a way to revalue these small, seemingly useless bits of scrap. And that felt really bizarre, because if you think about the companies who create it, a lot of them pride themselves on their creativity and innovation. So we found that to be very, very bizarre. And we came up with the idea that, particularly at the time, there was a lot of talk about the theory of the circular economy, but no one was designing for it. And the design brief that I put together for Elvis was that we had to design for deconstruction, we had to deliver the circular economy, we had to think of this leather waste as if it were Lego, and it had to be something that you could put together and take apart and put together and take apart. And Elvis came up with 3 shapes that you could cut into the leather to maximize the amount of material that there was, but also allow you to weave basically whole new hides of any size. And then these can be taken apart and made into new things. So you could make a rug, and if you didn't like the rug anymore, you could take it apart and make placemats or upholster a chair, or make a bag. You know, it just gave leather waste all kinds of new potential futures, which was really, really exciting for us. And when I first started talking about this solution publicly in about 2010, and some people from Burberry approached us and said, you know, could you help us with our leather waste? And then it took us about 3 to 4 years to work out how we could collaborate with them. That we formed a 5-year partnership that launched at the end of 2017. Still has 3 years to go. It probably is a much longer term permanent relationship, because they're not going to stop producing the leather waste after our 5 years together. So there is a lot that we will be able to do going forward. And it's been really positive for everyone. You know, it's very symbiotic. We help them with their leather waste. We also help them with, you know, a shift towards more sustainable future. I'm on their Burberry's ethical and sustainable advisory board.
Wow. Well done.
And I think it's a really interesting place to be, particularly as we are all focused on having a lot more impact over a shorter time frame now. Now that we're all, you know, working with the climate catastrophe as a kind of backdrop to everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking a little bit about yourself and the brand that you're creating around yourself, Kresse, you're on the speaker circuit, you do quite a lot of public speaking now. How and why did you get into doing public speaking, and what are your sort of plans for that going forward? How has that enhanced your business?
Well, I guess I started that by accident too, because when in about 2007, someone asked, you know, this is obviously really early days of Elvis and Kresse. Someone said, you know, we would like you to come and meet some people from the cabinet office, because we're going to appoint 30 social enterprise ambassadors that we want to, for the next 3 years, go all over the UK to schools, to businesses, to all kinds of spaces where there are people talking about interesting things, and introduce them to the concept of social enterprise. And they chose some really amazing, seasoned social entrepreneurs like Tim Smith from the Eden Project, but they also asked some younger social entrepreneurs like myself. So, you know, I wasn't even 30, I don't think, at that point. And what was amazing was that they sent us all off to Moreton in Marsh, which I think is the Cotswolds, and to be media trained. You know, they sent us to this amazing place to work with journalists on how to give a good presentation, how to be interviewed on the radio, how to be interviewed on TV, how that's different, and how to tell our stories in a compelling way. And there was two benefits to this. One, I got to know 29 other absolutely unbelievable people who've become a real network of peers and friends
Brilliant. Yeah.
since I came to the UK. But I also learned that our what we're trying to do is going to have a much bigger impact if people find out about it in a compelling way. It's a compelling story, but if you don't talk about it in a compelling way, then it doesn't reach people. It doesn't touch them. It doesn't hit them in the chest. It doesn't, change their view of what the future could be like. And that was something that I started to learn then, and I'm still learning now. And the reason that I will consistently do public speaking is because I believe that the world is not good enough, that it has to be better. I believe that businesses have to put the environment and its people above the needs of shareholders. I believe that what we're doing is right. And after having done it for 15 years, I have proof that it's successful. So that means that there's no excuse for any business to be extractive or exploitative anymore. And having survived this long in this kind of competitive industry and having succeeded here, all we have been really given is the permission to ask of others what we expect and demand from ourselves. And that is for people to operate at a moral level for the benefit of everyone and the benefit of the environment. And if being given a platform to tell that message is a privilege, and it is one that I will always take seriously and always take the opportunity of, because I think it's a really important message.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what you've just said there, Kresse, about the fact you will always take the opportunity, because there's always somebody that hasn't heard the story, isn't there? There's always somebody else that will share what you say and potentially open up further doors for you. You mentioned about your network and growing that network and how important that is for you, and the collaboration opportunities. So the more that you speak, the more you've got the opportunity to grow as well, haven't you?
And I think also, for a long time, people think businesses like this are very niche and they don't make any money and they're not realistic. And, I've been to meetings and events where people said, oh, what you do is very, very cute, but, it's not real. It doesn't exist in the real world. And, that's also why it's important for us to be public about what we do, because it is real. It is happening. And frankly, it's just better.
Yeah.
So it's very important for us to be public about this, because I do think there's a lot of people who still believe that business has to be bad and that you can only have any kind of profit or any kind of success if you destroy the environment or if you're evil in some way. And I just don't think that's true. I think that's just a lack of creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. And the products, and I will share your website with everybody as well. And the products that you create are just absolutely beautiful. And there's such a lovely range there as well. So fantastic products and fantastic workmanship goes into that. I mean, you don't cut any corners at all, do you? I mean, it's absolutely perfect craftsmanship. And it's great that craftsmanship is still very much alive and well in the UK. As well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really important too. It's also important because objectively I know how much I love fire hose, but I don't expect anyone else to love it that much unless we do turn it into a thing of beauty, unless it is completely transformed, and unless we've put our heart and souls into the craftsmanship behind it. So that is really important as well.
Yeah, driven by passion. Yeah, brilliant. Well, Kresse, thank you so much. It's been absolutely great to chat with you, and I will see you, I'm sure, a lot more in 2020 as well. So looking forward to continuing to work with you, and have a great Christmas to you, Elvis, and all the team. And I hope to speak to you soon.
Thanks very much.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.